Hi, I'm Stewie 3D, and in today's episode of Gobbin Off About Tech, I'm going to talk to you about gaming laptops, and more specifically, a question that I see in a lot of the YouTube comment sections on gaming laptop reviews, and that is, oh, does your one for thermal throttle whilst on battery? Does yours get slow down on battery, or and I have seen it to the point where people are actually saying, "Oh God, mine slows down so much on battery. It's got to be faulty. I've sent it back to the manufacturer." Well, I'm just making this video to explain. Yes, it is normal for that to happen, and explain to you why it's meant to happen. So, if you're already aware, laptops have a lithium ion battery in them, and they'll be rated for a specific amount of watt hours. So I'm going to use my HP Omen as the example. My HP Omen has a 65 watt hour battery in it. So yeah, as we all know from the old science experiments in school, that lithium isn't the most stable of element. Lob a chunk of that in some water and you've got some fizzy, fiery, explosive fun. But however, it does make some very good batteries. So with that, because lithium is not the most safest element, lithium ion batteries, you have to be extra careful with them. So every battery will have a specific discharge and recharge rating. If you exceed that, then you can cause serious damage and even fire an explosion to the battery. We'll use a well-known example, that is the Samsung Galaxy Note 7. Now, what happened was, with that, it was a rapid discharge that caused those things to explode. Now, what happened was they had made such a high powerful battery into such a small space that the safety materials between the anode and the cathode part of the battery was too thin. And what was happening was, as the battery was heating up and cooling down during normal use and charging, as you know, when things heat up, they expand, and when they cool down, they constrict. Well, what was happening was, either through charging or through normal use, the battery was heating up, and the anode and the cathode were just touching each other enough to create an internal short of the battery, which then created a rapid discharge situation, which caused the battery to rapidly heat up and burst into flames, and in some cases even explode. And that's why they couldn't figure out, because some people were having it when it was charged, and some people it was when it was in use. Other people, it was just sitting on an airline seat, and it was because of that. It was the safety margins of the battery. So how does that apply to a laptop, you might ask? Well, as I said that before, the HP Omen has a 65 watt hour battery. However, the HP Omen's components are rated much higher. So the GTX 1050 GPU that's in my HP Omen is rated at 75 watts. And the CPU, the Intel Core i5 CPU, is rated at 45 watts, giving a combined power draw just on those two components under full load of 120 watts. That's not including the screen, hard drive, RAM, audio, anything else, any USB devices, what might be plugged in. So if we factor them in, you've now got under full gaming load, a combined power draw of 130, 140 watts. However, when plugged in, that's no problems at all, because the laptop power supply is rated at 150 watts, so it's got more than enough to power all of the components and to charge up the battery at the same time. Now, you'll notice this when you're using the laptop. If you pick up the power brick and all you're doing is just lightly web browsing, the power brick will just be mildly warm, not maybe even cold. However, if you're absolutely spanking it under a full gaming load, everything's maxed out 100%, the laptop is really sucking down the power, you'll feel the power brick get quite warm, and in some cases quite uncomfortably warm. However, that's normal. The power brick's designed to handle that. The battery, on the other hand, isn't. So, as I said, the battery is rated at 65 watt hours. If you then put a 130, 140 watt draw on that battery, what's going to happen is you're going to put a massive rapid discharge on it, which is going to cause the battery to heat up significantly to the point where it could end up bursting into flames. So what all gaming laptops do it, what they will all do is they will throttle back somehow, and I'm going to show you that now. So if you notice in my top left hand corner, I have all of my extended stats. So on the top line I have my GPU clock at 1734 megahertz. Oh, hello, wait a minute, I'm just getting my head kicked in by a biker, and sort him out. Yeah, so my GPU is currently clocked at 1734 megahertz. That's basically NVIDIA's GPU boost. It's basically self-overboosting because it knows it's got the power and the thermal headroom to do so. Down at the bottom, as you can see, all of those 3092, 3092, 3092, 3092 megahertz, that is the Intel Core i5 4-core CPU. Now, 3.1 gigahertz is the maximum turbo boost clock of the Intel Core i5. Over all 4 cores, it will turbo up to 3.5, but only on one single core. So as you can see, everything is pretty much maxed out. You know, everything is all ramped up at maximum speed. So as you can imagine, it is sucking down a lot of power. Now, if I was to put that load on the battery, it would literally cause the battery to fry in seconds. It will just, yeah. So what happens is, if I'm to unplug it now this is going to react quite differently because I'm using the GPU to encode this video using the NVIDIA hardware encoding part. It's going to throttle down in a different way to if you weren't using the GPU encoder. So basically, when I did this earlier without recording the video, when I unplugged it, the CPU throttled back slightly, but the GPU went from 1700 megahertz down to 700. Which is a massive drop, but it's not going to react like that this time because I am encoding a video with it. But either way, I'm now going to unplug it. Watch it. There you go. All of the cores throttling back like mad. And what seems to be happening is the CPU's throttling back more because, as I said before, I am using the GPU to encode this video. But there you go, it's throttling back like crazy. If I wasn't encoding the video, this would be a lot more stable. As I said before, when I did it without encoding the video, the GPU just ramped down to 700 and it stayed there. But as I'm encoding the video at the same time, it's throttled back in a completely different way. That being said, though, this effectively demonstrates what this laptop will do. You know, it just completely throttles back, downclocks everything to stop putting a significant load on the battery. So if I now plug back in, everything will boost straight back up. Give it a second. There we go. Everything is back to being smooth again. And that is because the laptop knows that the battery can only deliver a certain amount of wattage safely. So it has a limit baked inside it that none of the components can go over. So, and because it knew in that instance that it couldn't throttle back the GPU because I was using it to encode, it decided it was going to hammer the CPU instead. But again, it shows that they all do it. So you're going to ask, well, why don't they put bigger batteries in laptops? So, you know, it's why don't they just put a 120 watt battery in or a 150 watt battery? Well, there's two reasons for that. The first one, and the big one, is size. So basically, if the 65 watt hour battery is the biggest they can physically fit in this machine without making it a massive big bertha. And let's face it, nobody wants a big bertha laptop. And as we said before, Samsung found that out to their detriment when all their phones started exploding. Basically, they are re-releasing the Note 7. All the ones they've taken back, they're refurbishing them and reselling them again. and what they're going out with much smaller batteries. So I think the original Note 7 had a 4,000 milliamp hour battery. The new Note 7R only has a 2,600 milliamp hour battery. So that's the kind of compromises they've had to make. So yeah, to fit something like a 150 watt hour battery in this, you're looking at a battery that's double the size of the one what's in there, which will make the laptop pretty much a fat boy beefy laptop, which nobody's going to want. And the second reason is down to the airline industry. The laptops with fixed internal batteries are only allowed a maximum of a 99 watt hour battery. That's why when you see these desktop replacement massive fat boy laptops with dual 1080s and flipping desktop i7s in them, they still only have a 99 watt hour battery, because that is what's mandated by law. You cannot take a laptop on an airline with anything more than a 99 watt hour battery. So that's the second reason. However, that doesn't mean you can't game whilst you're out and about on battery. You're not going to get very much life out of it anyway, but the less demanding titles will run pretty well. Obviously, if you've got a game which is absolutely spanking all of your resources whilst plugged in, don't expect it to work very well when it's unplugged. However, lighter, lower demanding games like Rocket League, CSGO, this laptop will absolutely annihilate them. So I get, on average, around about 100, 120 frames a second at maximum graphics quality whilst plugged in with this laptop. I reckon on battery I could easily pull 60. So, and to get around that, Nvidia have done something in the GeForce experience, which I shall show you now. So I'm going to quickly exit this, and I shall show you the experience. Now, I know a lot of you guys don't use it, but this is just more as a guide. But basically, if you look, the plugged-in settings, well, I'll show you compare my plugged-in settings compared to the battery settings. So, bear with me. Yeah, they're my current settings. So ambient occlusion high when on battery with the throttled back GPU off. So yeah, high, normal, on, off. So a lot of things get turned down, and if you run with the Nvidia optimal settings when on battery, it does make a lot of difference, as I've proven in previous videos. I did a battery drain test when I didn't bother changing the settings and figured it would just work, and not realising at the time that the laptop would throttle back as significantly as it did, and the game was a jerky, nasty, unplayable mess. It was just awful. And then I did it again, the same video, but with the Nvidia optimal settings, and it ran a lot better. And also what Nvidia does as well whilst on battery to make the game a lot smoother, you've got battery boost. Now if I can find where the settings are for it, there you go. It locks the frames at 30 frames a second as well, so you don't get as many micro stutters. So if you use the Nvidia optimal settings and then have the battery boost on, it will just make, you know, the whole experience a lot smoother. So yeah, so to answer the question I have seen in many YouTube posts, yes, it is normal for the system to throttle back, and it will throttle back significantly depending on your hardware. I'm only running quite low powered hardware, and it still throttles back quite significantly. So those of you with, you know, 1070, 1080 laptops, unplugging them and they suddenly run like rubbish, then that's why, basically. And yeah, it is meant to do it. So yes, they all do it, and yes, they are meant to do it. So I'm hoping this video has been useful and hopefully answers questions for people. Thank you very much for watching. If it has been useful and you've enjoyed it, then leave a like below. Thank you very much for watching. Bye bye.